This is exercise 6.5-14. I'm going to use metric units, so 1 full block equals 10 millimeters. This is from the Gaiseki Technical Drafting. So in previous problems we've experimented with a couple of techniques. The first technique that we emphasize is to draw one line or one rectangle or one circle and dimension it immediately for a sense of scale. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to go from the origin going down to the left, and I'm going to dimension the width of this rectangle as 70, and I'll dimension the height of this rectangle as 40. Note that it all turns black. It's all fully constrained. And I'm going to draw a line across this corner over here. Be careful, don't snap to the midpoint here unless you want it constrained to that midpoint. In this case, I don't want it constrained to the midpoint, so I'm going to click up about there, and I'm going to dimension then from this point down to here a distance of 25. And I'm going to dimension from this point over to this point a dimension of 50. Alright, I'll go around to the isometric and I'll finish sketch. So then I'm going to extrude this area right in here. Notice we don't have to trim out these lines. So I'm going to extrude. I'll select that area. I'm going to go towards the back, although it doesn't really matter, and I'll go a distance of -30, and I'll say OK to that and save it. Every time I do something right, I save it. Alright, then I'm going to go around to the right side view, and I'm going to start a new sketch on the right side plane, and I'll draw a rectangle from this corner. And if it doesn't snap there, we can just sketch it in there, and then I'm going to do P for project, and I'm going to project this point right there on that corner, or we could have just added the coincident constraint to it. I'll say OK to that, and then I had the whole face selected, so it actually projected the entire face. That's okay. I'm going to put a coincident constraint between these 2 points, and then I'm going to dimension this line. Be careful, there's 2 lines in here. I want to dimension this line a distance of 20. Okay, so that's that height, and I'm going to dimension the distance from here over to here a distance of 5. Alright, and then we will extrude that going all the way through the part. And so I'll finish sketch and I'll do extrude. I want to extrude this area right here, and I'm going to go through the part, cutting through the part, and I want to go through all. Did something right, save it. Okay, then I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm going to start a new sketch. And again, I could start the sketch on this face, but whenever possible, it's better to start on the origin planes. The origin planes can't be deleted, and so you're less likely to have problems down the road. This is called the Born technique by using the origin planes. Base, the Born stands for Base Orphan Reference Node. So we'll do as much as possible. We use the origin plane. So I'm going to start a new sketch on this plane, and I'm going to draw a line, and I want it to actually be to this line. I'll just put it in here in space to start with, and let's project this edge, and let's project this edge to our current sketch. So I'll do P for project. I'll select this edge, I'll select that edge, and I'll say OK. And then I'm going to trim off this line, or you can just drag it and drop it, and it will snap to this line. Now, one thing I should have been careful about is I didn't put it here to the midpoint, and I didn't put this one to the midpoint. I'm going to put some dimensions on here, so I'm going to dimension from here over to this point, and I need to do that again. I'll get that again. From this point over to this point, that distance is 10, and then I'm going to dimension from this point over to this point as 30. Now watch, when I put that dimension in, that line will change color. So now it's fully defined, it turns black. I'm going to draw another line in here, and this line I'm going to put anywhere except, don't put it here at the midpoint. So I'm going to put it somewhere out here, about like that. Now I want this line to be parallel to this one, so I'm going to select parallel. I'll select this line, and I'll select that line, and now it puts that parallel constraint on there. Those two lines are constrained so that they are parallel. I'll put a dimension from here over to here, and I'm going to dimension that as 40. And notice all I needed was that 40 dimension, because they're parallel. This distance over here is whatever it is. I'm going to P for project and project this line as well. Now I'll say OK to that, and I can either drag this down or trim it off, trim off that excess. And I could have just left it alone. I didn't really need to trim it, but you see I have an enclosed area right in here. Now we don't really have to do the next step because we have an enclosed profile, but I prefer to sketch object lines over top of that in case I make a really big change, that change doesn't cause my sketch to go sick. Now if I know I'm not going to make any really big change, I could just leave it the way it was, but I'm just going to use that technique of sketching over top of that, and I'm going to extrude cut a distance of 10, negative 10. I want to put it on cut, and let's put in the flip the side here. And come on, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to cut that back into a distance of 10. And next I want to put a hole right here, and I want to put a hole right here. Now I could have put those holes in my first sketch, in my sketch number 1, or I could go back and I could edit that sketch. So let's do that. Let's go back to sketch number 1. I'm going to select edit sketch, and I'm going to put a circle about right here, and I'm going to put another circle about right here. I'll dimension the diameter of one of these circles as 10. I will dimension the distance from here over to the side as 10 to position that circle, and then from here down to here is 30. Okay, so that locates this circle, and then I'm going to locate this circle from here down to here. Let's do that as 10. And from here over to here, let's do that as 60. And I want those two circles to be the same size, so I'll do equal, and when I put that equal, this one is going to turn black. It's fully defined. Alright, so I put these two circles in here, but when I finish this, I still don't have the holes in here. I can go back to, so we went back and edited this first sketch. Let's edit this first feature now. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say edit feature, and I'm going to control unselect these areas, and then I will select that just this area, and I want to try that differently, see if I need to do the control. So I'm going to edit feature again, and this time I'm just going to click inside here, and I'm going to click inside here, so I can just select those to remove those two areas from our selection set, and I'll say OK. And so now I have the holes going through, and I have completed my part. So I'm going to turn off the origins planes by just clicking on this light bulb, and I will save my part. And so there's the front view looking like that, the top view, and the right side view. Now notice this little piece coming out here. If we were doing this traditional 2D drawing, it would have been a little bit complicated figuring all of that out. If we go to a wireframe with hidden edges, and actually let's do shaded with hidden edges, and we'll look at that from the. So we see here's the dashed line for the edge of this surface that's going from left to right, and we see the hidden lines for the holes going through the part as well. I'm going to put that back with shaded with visible edges. I'll save it. Actually, it has been saved, and I'll do a drawing now. So I'm going to do a drawing from this design, and the standard that I'm going to use is ASME standard, and I'm going to put that on 11 by 8.5 or A size sheet of paper. I will place my first view, and I'll put that in at 1:1 scale. And so I'm going to place a view here, and I will say OK to that. And then I'm going to project a top view off of that front view. I'll come over here and project a right side view, and then I'll come up here and project an isometric. Once I have those views, I'll right click and say OK, I want to create those views. And so Inventor or Fusion creates those views for me. Alright, then I'm going to go through and put my center marks. So I will do a center mark in this circle and in this circle, and I want a center line over here, and so I'm going to put a center line between here, and between here and here. I have those two center lines, and then I'll go through and dimension my views. So I might want to move these views a little bit, give me some more room to dimension those. So I'm going to move this one up a little bit. That might be a little bit too far, and of course we can move those around as needed after we get our dimensions in there and see how everything's going to fit. So I will go through and do my dimensioning. So I have this circle is I hit the wrong thing. Let's try that again. Dimension. This circle is 10. The height of that circle down to the bottom edge, and let's try that again. I'm going to select the circle itself. I'll select the circle. It finds the center of the circle. I'll select this point, and it wants to do. That's a little bit frustrating that Fusion wants to dimension like that. I'm going to select this line first. I'll select the line, and then I'll select the circle, and that seemed to work a little easier. That distance 30. I mean, yeah, and then the overall height from here up to here is 40. The distance from this edge to this circle, and that distance is 10. And notice that's also the distance to this point right here. So I think I'll put this distance 10 up here so that it isn't any chance of confusion, and I'll put this then the 10 down here, and then from this point over to this point is the 40, and then from this point over to this circle, and this 60, and then the vertical height from this line up to this circle 10. The vertical height of this line is 25. I may move these dimensions around after I get them in. The distance of from this point over to this point, 50. And let's see, we'll put in the overall width of this from here over to here is 70. And this slot is cut back in here a distance of 10. The distance from front to back of the part is 30. Now I don't like the way that this put the extension line over top because I selected this line. So rather than select this line, see, I should have a gap right like this between the extension line and the object line. So this time I'll select either this line or this point, this line and then this line, rather than select that line, and that will give me that gap here that I should have, make it look aesthetically pleasing. Now I could try moving dimensions around, try to find the best location for the dimensions to make everything look aesthetically pleasing. I'll move that dimension, and I'm going to move this view up just a little bit higher. I'll move this dimension down just a little bit. And that looks good. And you move this down a little bit and move this one up a little bit, and this one, and this one. And make sure you look over your drawing and make it look aesthetically pleasing. I still need to dimension this slot, so I'll dimension the distance from this line down to this edge, and that's 20, and then from this line over to this line, and that distance is 5. I might want to move that dimension if I can get it in between the arrows or over here on the other side. Alright, so I'll look back over my drawing. If I missed any dimensions, I'm sure you'll let me know. So the key then with this line parallel to this line, and we saw how we could go back in history and we could edit a sketch. So we edited a sketch to add these two circles, and then we edited a feature to add to cut those holes in the same extrusion that we did the original geometry.